Okay, here we are once again um, for the third straight week. Me recording a video about a cup race that happened about a week ago, but yes, it's just par for the course. I mean, I just cannot find time on my schedule right now to record videos unless I stay up overnight recording them. And honestly, I'm starting to consider that because it's starting to feel pretty awkward, and it's starting to like always cut into my schedule. Every time I go to sleep, I'm like, yeah, I know I could just record a video, but then I just like, nah, I'm too tired. Let me leave it for tomorrow, and it's always the same cycle. Uh, it eventually comes to a point where it's like Saturday morning, and I say, you know what, I haven't done a video on this race. Let's do it now. So yeah. Uh, Anyways, let's talk about the Bristol race though. Uh, because that race, holy shit, um, that race was a different animal. This was the first race back on Spring Bristol with a concrete surface. It no longer is a dirt surface like they did back for the past 3 years. This is for the first time since like um, 2020. The Spring Bristol race has been on, well, actually 2019, because 2020 was the Bristol race was held like in late spring, early summer. I believe it was in June. Um, but yeah, first time since then. The first Bristol race has been on concrete. I was a bit intrigued over how would the racing would go because, as you guys know, and I know I've always said this, I've always beat that horse to death. I don't mind beating that one again to make my point clear, but I always like it. You know, that Bristol dirt race, it served its purpose. It showed that NASCAR was pretty good. NASCAR was, you know, they could still make dirt racing work, but it needs to be on a purpose-built dirt track. I'm not a fan of like turning one of the existing short tracks into a dirt race. I'd rather just have NASCAR just keep their two Bristol dates and then put the move the dirt race somewhere else on a track that is actually a true dirt track, not like a temporary dirt track like Bristol. And I don't. I'm not a big fan of that. But still, Bristol dirt was good. Yeah, some people wanted to come back, but I'm not clamoring for it to come back, even if the racing was good. At least it served its purpose. That's all I'm trying to say. So, the main concern obviously was the weather, as it is usual for Spring Bristol. It was a bit overcast, but it was still nice nonetheless. You know, first time in forever, it feels like. But yeah, Blaney started on the pole as usual for Ford. They're pretty fast in qualifying, but they have just nothing to show for a come race day. Although for this past week and also the race before at Phoenix, the Fords have actually started to pick it up quite a little bit. They're still searching for that first win of 2024 across all three national series, not just in Cup, but at least they have it figured out in qualifying, because it's been like 4 out of the first 5 races that a Ford has started on the pole. 4 out of 5 they've put a Ford in the front row. 2 poles with Logano, McDowell, and now Blaney. And Josh Berry in second. Stewart-Haas Racing is starting to definitely impress me. Looking at the driver talent that they have, it's pretty clear. Stewart-Haas Racing, their main forte is short tracks, and Josh Berry is a great short track racer in that regard. So I definitely look this as his first as one of the races where he could definitely show what he can do in a Stewart-Haas racing car. Hamlin started in third behind them. He was slow in practice, but to be fair, I mean, don't take like practice. I don't take practice speeds much for what they are, because some guys can just be sandbagging. For example, Hamlin was like, I believe, 30th in practice, but look at him qualifying third now. Joe Logano fourth. So if you're counting at home, that's 3 Fords in the top 4. Then Chase Elliott started 5th, the highest qualifying Chevrolet. And then Briscoe, Michael McDowell 6th and 7th, William Byron 8th, Bubba Wallace 9th, and Kyle Larson 10th. So all three manufacturers pretty well represented in the starting lineup. Behind them, Martin Truex starting 11th, Christopher Bell 12th, Kyle Busch 14th, then Zane Smith, great qualifying effort for him in 16th, Brad Keselowski 17th, Corey LaJoie 18th, then Ty Gibbs in 19th, Noah Gragson in 22nd, Tyler Reddick 23rd, Ryan Preece, another one of those Stewart-Haas Racing short track races that I was mentioning about when I was talking about Josh Berry. He will be starting 25th. Daniel Suarez 28th, Bowman 29th, Allmendinger 30th, Chris Buescher 34th, then Carson Hocevar 35th. He got loose in qualifying. He saved the car, but he posted a poor lap time. Regardless, Hocevar was one of those guys that I was expecting a lot out of him on that race, considering that he ran top 10 in the Bristol night race. He didn't finish top 10, but he ran top 10 for most of for a considerable portion of that race. So I was definitely looking at him to have a good showing, as well as Ross Chastain, who started dead last. So we immediately go to the race. Immediately begins. It begins as usual. Ryan Blaney, he leads the first two laps, but due to struggling with a loose race car, he is unable to clear Josh Berry. Berry eventually gets the lead on lap 3, and he pulls away with Briscoe, Hamlin, and Chase Elliott battling for third. Some guys I noticed who dropped out of the top 10 pretty early on were Joey Logano and William Byron. But I usually, there was nothing unusual about this race. At that point, it was like, something I noticed pretty early on. I didn't notice, this was before I realized that madness was about to ensue. But if you're looking back on it, the madness was already ensuing before us, right before our eyes, because those two guys, Logano and Byron, they got together with Christopher Bell while racing 3 wide off of turn 2. Byron got the worst of it. He hit the wall in turn 3. He almost spun out, but he saved it. He bends the toe link though, and unfortunately that puts him multiple laps down for the rest of the race. Like he would still finish the race running, but he wouldn't have the pace to to even keep up with the leaders. He will finish multiple laps down. Like his race basically ended. Okay, he was just a dead man walking at that point. So yeah, the caution comes out anyways because of the debris coming up the 24 car. Also, don't let this distract you from the fact that we are 5 races into this season. All 5 races that feature an early race yellow. So we go to pit road. Everyone pits for tires, which I actually find really weird. Which I actually found really weird. Although to be fair, most of those guys were in their qualifying scuffs, so I guess they wanted to put on fresh tires. So I didn't think that big of a deal. I didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time when I was watching the race. I just found it pretty interesting. Reddick was the only one guy who stayed out, and he took the lead. And I thought that he would hold on to the lead for a good chunk of laps, because Bristol is a track, and as every other short track, I know Bristol, they don't run the short track package, they run an intermediate package, but track position on short tracks with this Gen 7 car, it matters a lot. So I didn't think much of it. I thought it was a great call by Reddick to stay out. Unfortunately, he got chewed up on the restart by Josh Berry and Bubba Wallace, and coming up of turn 4 in a 3-wide situation, Reddick gets loose. He could have, looking back on it, maybe he could have gotten a little tap by Logano, but that 45 was just all over the place already. He spun out. He got hit by Zane Smith. At first I didn't know what the 71 was thinking there, trying to avoid the wreck in the apron. But then I listened to some radio communications, and it looks like the 71 was struggling with his brakes. So yeah, and behind him, speaking of Zane Smith, obviously, his teammates also got involved in a chain reaction too, when a 4-car spin involving Allmendinger, Hemrick, LaJoie, Hocevar. So that's a tough start for Spire for the season. They got hit with a triple threat move. Zane Smith getting involved in an accident, and then behind him, his teammates LaJoie and Hocevar getting spinning out too. And that incident change the entire perspective of the race. That's when I finally opened my eyes and realized this race is an absolutely different animal. This incident showed me how much tires will matter in this race, and it set the tone for the rest of the race. I don't know. First I thought that Goodyear they have brought like a softer compound that wears out quickly, but eventually I realized, and they clarified that this was the same compound that they had used for the Bristol night race. It looks like in the day that that compound doesn't put out that much rubber, and because of that, it causes the tires to wear out faster. Maybe that track temperatures played a factor in that. As well. So I don't know. There's a lot of factors that need to be looked into, but if this was the same tire that they used for the Bristol night race, and they wear out more during the day with like hotter track temperatures, we were in for a wild race. And to show you what I mean, not even 50 laps in, and the outside lane was already full of marbles, like literally full of marbles. It was like black chunks of worn out tires. All of this set up for a very old school style Bristol race, which just hyped me up, because this is what, NASCAR fans have been clamoring for, like the return to the good old days of short track racing. This is what short track racing was all about back in the day. Tire management, beating and banging. Of course, there was also a bit of the new school Bristol with the 2-lane racing, because this is the new Bristol. This is not the Bristol from the old days. This is like Bristol after the 2007 reconfiguration. So we got to see some old school style short track racing on a new Bristol surface with progressive banking, and that instantly. This was not even 50 laps into the race. When I realized what this race was going to be like, I was like, yep, this race is about to be a banger. This race is about to be a banger. And I was right, because on the ensuing restart, the lead became a revolving door as drivers started getting to the lead, others started dropping back, comers and goers. The lead changed multiple times throughout this green flag run, from Josh Berry to Bubba Wallace, Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch. We had like 15 lead changes in the first 90 laps. For comparison, the track record for lead changes was 40. And we were already like almost halfway through in less than 100 laps. We were like almost halfway done with that through that record. Unfortunately, this was extreme tire wear. And it looks like, drivers and even crew chiefs, they underestimated how much the tires will wear out. This tire compound led to a lot of blowouts and tire issues. Like, I love the racing, but still, extreme tire wear. The tire wear was too extreme. There's too much of a good thing is actually bad. If you look at, for example, Indianapolis 2008, because there's a thing as extreme tire wear, and there's another thing like, tires blowing out the second they hit the track. Obviously, Bristol had extreme tire wear, but not like 2008 Brickyard 400 levels of tire wear. Some people may want you to believe that, but that wasn't the case. If that was the case, NASCAR would be throwing competition cautions like every 40 or 50 laps. So the fact that wasn't the case means that, yes, the tire wear was extreme, but it was manageable. It was manageable to the point that NASCAR didn't feel the need to throw competition cautions for teams to change tires, but we still had some drivers dropping back, like running on fumes, running on like worn tires that were just about to blow towards the end of that run. Noah Gragson had to pit under green due to a flat tire, and then a few laps later, Shane Smith, his right front tire, blows apart, and that brings out another debris caution. So we had 3 cautions already in stage 1. And all of them for tire-related issues. Yes, I know the red caution was due to him staying out on all tires, but I will count it too, because in retrospect, again, I thought staying out was a great move, but realizing that tires were gonna matter a lot. Yes, that red caution was because of tires as well. So we go to pit road, and everyone just pits for 4 tires. There is no strategy whatsoever. Everyone is pitting on 4 tires. If you want to gain track position, you gotta gain it either with a great pit stop, or out on the track. Like, there is absolutely no pit strategy. Um, but you gain your track position on the track. So don't expect any strategy or drivers staying out anymore. You want to gain spots, do it on the track. Hamlin wins the race of pit road. Elliott, Blaney, and Busch also are in it. Michael McDowell got a penalty for too many men over the wall on this round of pit stops. And we go to another restart. This is the green flag run that ended stage 1, the last green flag run on the stage. So Hamlin and Blaney, they battle for the lead. Chase Elliott, he started struggling with some electrical issues. He loses third to Kyle Busch. As the green flag round goes on, we see more of the same, like comers and goers. Kyle Busch passes Blaney for second, and he starts chasing Hamlin down for the lead. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, those guys, they also creep their way into the top 5. But at the end of the stage, and this is where, if you thought the race was really insane, was really fun at that point, just wait until it got to the end of stage 1. It got absolutely insane. Just absolute madness, calamity, anarchy. Like, every single one of the leaders, especially the top 4, Hamlin, Busch, Blaney, and Bell, they were on the top 4 at the time, they just absolutely lose their tires, and they start dropping back. Kyle Busch is the first, but then Hamlin, Blaney, Bell, they start experiencing the same issues of, tires getting worn out. They all lose the lead, and eventually the stage ends under caution after Kyle Busch, he spins trying to nurse his car to the end of the stage while also trying to stay on the lead lap. Unfortunately, he doesn't. And Hamlin also gets put in the wall after getting bumped into the marbles. I believe it was by William Byron. This race had officially become a war of attrition and tire management, and I love it. Goodyear may have cooked a little too much, but I have no doubt this race will go down as a banger when we look back on it. One of the all-time great races of 2024. And it's pretty crazy because we're already just 5 races in. The Cup Series has already had 2 great races in this season. Obviously, the 3 white photo finish in Atlanta. And now we had like a old school meets new school type of Bristol race where tires are like with extreme tire wear. That was awesome. Speaking of who won the stage, because it's like no one wanted to win the stage because of the tires, or more like the tires prevented Hamlin, the top 4, from winning the stage. Ty Gibbs comes out of all of this as a big winner with the stage 1 win. Kyle Larson finishes second, Chris Buescher in third, Keselowski in fourth, John Hunter Nemechek fifth, Ryan Blaney in sixth, Martin Truex in seventh, Christopher Bell, Ryan Preece, and Josh Berry. Those were the top 10 drivers that earned points for the first stage. Speaking of the other guys that were like, the top 4, Hamlin finished 13th, so he doesn't even get any stage points out of all that. Chase Elliott in 15th, and Kyle Busch, because he brought out the caution and spun out, he dropped all the way down to 28th, so he doesn't get any stage points, and I believe he also fell a lap down. So, yeah, I thought this was gonna be a good race for us Kyle Busch fans, but the moment he started dropping back and the moment he just lost his tires, he also had to be the first one to lose his tires. Like, I do not understand that. Of all the drivers that could have just lost their tires or gone their tires flat, why did Kyle Busch have to be the first one? Come on. Anyways, we go to pit road. Again, everyone takes 4 tires. Larson wins the race off pit road over Ty Gibbs. And then we go to stage 2. At this point, the strategy has changed from, track position to don't use up your stuff. If you're racing your way to the lead, you're probably cooked in the long run. If you're pulling away from the field, you're probably using up your stuff too, which means you're also cooked in the long run. That doesn't mean the battle for the lead goes stale, though. No, far from it. The lead is still the battle for the lead is still a revolving door. You see Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, Denny Hamlin, John Hunter, Christopher Bell, Josh Berry. It was mostly Toyotas, but also Kyle Larson and Josh Berry. So yeah, the battle for the lead, it doesn't become stale because they see guys at some point. Guys, they want to keep their tires, but also if they see the leader slowing down, They don't want to, they still gotta advance their position. So at some point, somebody's gonna push the issue, and then someone else is gonna respond, and they're all gonna eventually, run. Eventually gonna run at full speed. That doesn't really happen, but if the leader slows down trying to conserve his tires, that's eventually gonna open the door for somebody else to take the lead, and then that new leader is eventually gonna stay out for a few laps, and then they're gonna realize, hey, let me manage my tires now that I stayed out, on the lead, let a couple of laps, and the cycle just repeated. So the battle for the lead, it did not go stale. It was still a revolving door. It was a crazy sight to watch, though. Everyone was bunched up together, running like 3rd or 4th gear. You gotta remember, these Gen 7 cars, they run on 5th gear at best. They have 5 gears. These guys were running 3rd or 4th gear on this green flag run. They were running on restricted speeds. This was pretty much pack racing on a short track. You remember that Daytona 500, how the Daytona 500, they run it. It was all like fuel mileage for 170 laps or so, and then the final green flag run, it was like go time, and everyone went crazy. This is exactly how the Bristol race was. It was like tire management. This was like everyone bunched up together, not trying to save fuel, but trying to conserve their tires. It was pretty crazy. We got pack racing on a short track. All drivers were like carefully deciding on the spot whether they should make the pass or just stay put and save their stuff for the long run. Again, you remember how the Daytona 500 was a fuel mileage affair? We're seeing the same thing at Bristol, but with tires. And, unlike fuel, gauging the tire window is more complicated because you never know when a tire is going to blow up. Like for fuel, it's more predictable because there's a fuel window. The tire window, this was an unknown quantity because of the track conditions, just throwing the whole, this was a tire compound. You gotta remember, this tire compound was the same tire compound that they used during the Bristol night race. It's the same tire compound. And the fact that it runs differently during the days and it wears out faster, doesn't lay out as much rubber, more marbles on the track, that threw teams out for a loop. So now they have to readjust and think about their new strategy on the spot. So it's no longer a matter of time of if or when the next caution will come out. It's a matter of who will be the unfortunate soul that will bring out the caution. Eventually the next caution does come out, not for tire though, for accident. Because, with the field being so bunched up together, this was eventually bound to happen. Stenhouse and McDowell, they make contact. Stenhouse, he gets loose and he comes up the track. He collected Daniel Hemrick and Saint Smith. Of course, that was like the 3rd incident for Saint Smith at this point, the poor guy. But yeah, you may consider this incident was minor, but due to the fact that, tires, tire wear, and the field bunching up together, NASCAR was very trigger happy with the caution button. I realized that, and for once, they were justified in doing so because, once again, changing tire, because, a caution means opportunity for teams to change tires, and drivers were already like breathing a sigh of relief when a caution came out. If you listen to some of the radio communications, you would know what I mean. But every time a caution came out, you could feel drivers or listen to drivers just breathing a sigh of relief every time a caution came out. So yeah, NASCAR was a little too trigger happy with the caution button, but this is one of the few times where they are actually justified because, holy shit, I just wouldn't be able to handle it. Extreme tire wear on a short track like Bristol, high speed, I just wouldn't be able to handle it. So, we go to pit road. This time it's Chris Buescher who wins the race of pit road over Ty Gibbs. Unfortunately for that 54 team, they get hit with an equipment interference penalty in this pit stop. But in a pretty genius move, they turn this bad penalty into an opportunity. The team, they decide to bring him down pit road again so they can put his qualifying scuff tires on to save that extra set. So basically, they're telling him, "Hey, go all out on these tires because we're not gonna need them anymore. Because those scuff tires at a track at that track like Bristol with the track conditions that they had last week, those scuff tires were good for one short run and one medium to longish run, and then that's it. That was basically Chris Gale's move, saying, "Hey, put on the scuff tires now, and it's go time. Okay, try to gain as many track position, try to recuperate or recover as many track position as you can get, and then once you feel like you've done enough, just once again, just settle down and stay there." That was a genius move, especially since Goodyear just authorized an extra set of tires during that caution. That was a pretty genius move by that, especially since teams were calculating that they would be like a set of tires short, so they will have to put on like a set or scuff tires or two eventually. So again, this was a genius move by Ty Gibbs, just using his set of scuff tires like almost immediately. So then we go to the restart. Chris Buescher holds the lead over Christopher Bell, and Larson, he immediately starts dropping back once again, doing an excellent job saving his tires. Eventually, Bell takes the lead as Chris Buescher starts dropping back. All the while, Ty Gibbs, like I said, he started making up ground with those qualifying scuff tires. I don't know, at first, looking back, when I first watched this race, I was watching Ty Gibbs just gain positions live. I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea considering what has happened in this race so far. But considering that, scuff tires basically gives you the green light to like go all out and win positions, it's like, yeah, you're not going to use that set of tires again. So you might as well go all out there and try to gain as many positions as you can, especially since, like I said, Goodyear, all of this like unexpected, the fact that these track conditions were like they came out of left field, this caused Goodyear, or actually it forced Goodyear's hand in forcing, like, starting to calculate how much tires they have, because in order to give a team an extra set of tires, you gotta give it a set of tires to every single other team as well. So a set of tires for all 36 teams. That's basically, you do the math, 144 tires in total. So this was around this time Goodyear was just calculating like how much tires or like how many tires do they have so that they can give an extra set of tires. Obviously they eventually did, and they authorized the extra set of tires. But even with the extra set of tires, as I'm going to talk about later, teams, they were calculating or estimating that they wouldn't make it to the end of the race even with that extra set of tires, and that they were going to have to put like another set of scuff tires. So that's why they were like, telling their drivers to like conserve as much as they can so that they can use that set of scuff tires for another run. But yeah, fortunately for Ty Gibbs, obviously, a caution comes out for a Kyle Busch spin, and I just want to point out now, almost every single caution has happened during commercial break. Not counting stage cautions, of course, but almost every single caution. I just found it really funny because I'm just keeping track of how many commercial cautions there were. They could come out like in the season for both Fox and NBC portion of NASCAR. I just lost count of that during the race. Like, I'm not doing that counter anymore because there were like 5 commercial yellows. My estimate is like 5 commercial yellows happened during this race. I'm not gonna do that counter anymore. I just lost track of that. So anyways, we go to pit road, and this time on this round of pit stops, we see some strategy. With only 13 laps left in the stage, everyone pits for their qualifying scuffs because they're following the 54 teams example. Christopher Bell wins the race of pit road. Truex and Ty Gibbs, they lose spots because of slow pit stops. Hamlin, Logano, and Larson, they gain spots. And Corey LaJoie and Carson Hocevar stay out. Which, honestly, I understand that Hocevar... I understand that the Spire cars, they were trying to save an extra set of tires, but with 11 laps to go, That's just, considering the extreme tire wear, that's just a little too much. That's just a little too much. You could even go a lap down, considering how shot your tires can be in that run. So, but still, for the guys that are on fresh tires, 11 laps to go, it's go time. No fearing having a tire blowout with that little amount of laps, and as I expected, LaJoie and Hocevar, they get chewed up on all tires. This leaves Bell and Logano to battle for the lead, but in the end, neither of them win the stage. Once again, it's Ty Gibbs with a masterful strategy of using his qualifying scuffs earlier than everyone. And now that he used his qualifying scuffs earlier, he put on a set of fresh tires now. And once again, he gets a jump on everyone. He races his way to the front despite a slow pit stop, and he sweeps the stages. So not only does Ty Gibbs have the speed, the 50-14 team was on the right strategy, because the best way to use your scuff tires is to use them as early as possible so that you can have fresh tires all the way at the end, so you have nothing but fresh tires on at the very end of the race. That 54 team, they already used their scuff tires, so they have nothing. All of their remaining sets of tires are fresh tires. So they just got the jump on everyone, and they have the speed to stay up front. So at the moment, Ty Gibbs, he looked like the guy to beat. And I'm just going to say it right now. He was the car to beat. This was like the first time. This is like the first time in Ty Gibbs' career that not only does he have race winning speed, he, without a doubt, looked like the car to beat. And again, also by sweeping the stages, of course, it's also a big help. But just to show you how much Ty Gibbs is gonna like win that his first race of his career this season. That first win is coming soon. I can already feel it. But holy shit, I just didn't realize. I thought, being his sophomore season, I thought he was gonna be a little bit of a slow start, and then he would get better as the season went on. This guy has been better like straight from the get-go. Aside from the Daytona 500, he has finished every single race. Every other race, he has finished it in the top 10. Like, seriously. Top 10 at Atlanta, and then at Las Vegas and Phoenix have been top 5s. And now he has race winning speed at Bristol. So anyways, we go to pit road. Everyone pits. Ty Gibbs wins the race of pit road once again. Martin Truex, he moves up to 3rd. Chastain has big gains, makes some big gains to get into the top 10. No, and this was not a strategy. He like pitted for 4 tires just like everyone else. He just had a very amazing sequence of pit stops under yellow. He gained 13 spots from 21st to 8th. Todd Gilliland, he also gained 8 spots on pit road. He went up from 13th to 5th. Keselowski, he dropped to 4th after contact with Cindric on pit road, and also Christopher Bell, he got penalized for an uncontrolled tire. Okay, I'm just reviewing my notes here. I just realized I skipped over the stage points. Wait, did I? Oh yes, I skipped over the stage winners on this caution. So yes, let me look them up. Let me look it up here again. Check here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so Ty Gibbs won the stage, like I said. Keselowski, he dropped to 4th on pit road. I said it after, contact with Cindric on pit road. Keselowski finished 2nd in that stage. Logano finished 3rd after battling with Christopher Bell for the lead. John Hunter Nemechek in 4th. Again, great job for John Hunter. One of the more low-key surprises of the race. Christopher Bell in 5th. Again, he and Logano battled for the stage win until Ty Gibbs just got the jump on them. And then the rest of Joe Gibbs Racing, Martin Truex in 6th, Denny Hamlin in 7th. Then Kyle Larson 8th, Bubba Wallace 9th, and Ryan Preece in 10th. So as you can see here, for most of the race, this was a repeat of the Phoenix race, with Toyota just, dominating the race, and then the Fords just being there, competing, but not having race-winning speed. And then the Chevrolets just struggling to stay afloat. This was just a repeat out of Phoenix. Again, and I believe this is what we're gonna see out of every single short tracks, like Toyota drivers, the the JGR drivers, then some of the Ford guys, and then Larson or whoever else Chevy driver steps into his place as the lone flag bearer for Chevrolet. I believe this is what we're gonna see out of not every single short track, but I believe this is what you can expect out of short tracks for this season. It's just the Gibbs guys dominating, then some Ford guys like Keselowski or Logano showing up, and then Larson or whoever else at Chevrolet. Just very few Chevrolets just dominating or just being up front. And on stage 3, you'll see what I mean on stage 3 when the green flag flew for the start of stage 3. That's exactly what happened. We had Joe Gibbs Racing guys, Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex, and Christopher Bell in the top 3, 1, 2, 3. And then Todd Gilliland was 4th, and John Hunter Nemechek in 5th. Logano, he starts to lose ground, and the 22 team, they're talking about putting scuff tires on. They were talking about putting scuff tires on during the last pit stop. Again, like I said, because not enough tires, they will have to use their scuffs at some point. And like I said with the Ty Gibbs situation, you better use them now than later. That's why Ty Gibbs just got the jump on everyone on stage 2, is because he decided to put his scuff tires earlier after getting penalized on pit road. So that was a great strategy call by the 54 team to recover all of the track position they lost from that penalty. And now everyone is just scrambling, trying to follow that example. Look at that 22 team, for example. Now, something I gotta mention now, stage 3. At this point, you see like less chaos, not as many lead changes as the first 2 stages. This is because at this point, it's already the second half of the race, and teams have already, at this point, they have adjusted to the track conditions. They have figured out what to do, which is why at this point you see like the cream rising to the top, and the rest of the field just, just struggling to catch up. There was only one lead change this time around, for Truex just passing Ty Gibbs for the lead. There was only one lead change on this green flag run. By now, the drivers, they have adapted to the track and conditions, and none have done it better than JGR, because by the time the next caution came out, Hamlin, I was talking about how Truex and Ty Gibbs were battling for the lead. Well, Christopher Bell, he stayed in 3rd, and Denny Hamlin, he took the lead. He took 4th. Not the lead, excuse me. He took 4th. So by the time the next caution came out, Joe Gibbs Racing, they were 1, 2, 3, 4. All of their cars in the top 4. Like at this point, stage 3, like I said, they're the team to beat. When it comes to short tracks, Joe Gibbs Racing, they're gonna be the team to beat. Watch out for them at Richmond. Watch out for them at Martinsville. But this is the team to beat. If they can adapt like that, if they can come out of it with a race with extreme tire wear, if they can come out of it with all of their drivers like running 1, 2, 3, 4 pace, that's just absolutely scary. Like I said, those Toyotas, especially those JGR Toyotas, when they figure out the new Camry, especially on short tracks, they're gonna be dangerous. You saw how they dominated Phoenix after struggling with to dominate with the old Gen 7 Camry in the past 2 seasons. They just went out and dominated Phoenix. When they struggled to lead at a track that they struggled to lead laps at in the previous 2 years of the Gen 7 car. Now, 2 weeks ago, because I'm recording this it's been already almost a week since the Cup race at Bristol, but 2 weeks ago at Phoenix, that was a track that they struggled to lead laps with the old Toyota Camry. Now with this new Camry, they dominated. And Phoenix, they run the short track package. Now, Bristol, I know they don't run the short track package at Bristol, but Bristol is still a short track. And even with the extreme tire wear, making it like an old school short track, the fact that JGR, they're coming out of it 1, 2, 3, 4, putting on an absolute clinic. That is scary. That is scary hours for the rest of the NASCAR of the field when it comes to short tracks.
So anyways, speaking of that next caution, Josh Berry spun in turn 2 after blowing a tire. Also worth mentioning, Harrison Burton was pitting under green at that time for an issue. For all we know, though, it could have been a flat tire. So then we go to pit road. Everyone pits, with Denny Hamlin winning the race off pit road over Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell. Truex dropping to 5th, so the JGR 1-2-3 full stranglehold is broken for a moment, while Larson moves up to 4th. Not for long though, as on the restart, once again, Truex passes Larson for 4th, and JGR returns to their 1-2-3-4 formation, with this time Ty Gibbs leading after taking the lead from Hamlin. But then once again, Larson, he passes Truex for 4th once again, and then the 19 starts dropping back. Not as much as Todd Gilliland though. Apparently that 38, he used up his stuff way too early trying to get to the top 5, had nothing in the long run, and he almost fell a lap down in the process of this green flag run. I think he got saved by a caution. I'm starting to miss some details. Again, you can attribute that to just me not being able to record the video like right after the race happened, because that's why I'm missing some details. It's been a week since that race, and I can't remember some details like as vividly as before, but I know he almost fell a lap down in the process. I don't know if he got saved by a caution though. Oh yes, he was. He got saved by a caution. So yeah, this green flag run was all about Hamlin and Ty Gibbs battling for the lead. That battle unfortunately was halted by Stenhouse and Cindric spinning out in turns 3 and 4, trying to stay on the lead lap. And this happened in front of the leaders too, so it was a very dicey situation. I do believe Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell made some contact, or they almost made some contact, because like I said, this happened in front of the leaders. In front of the top 3 were like passing by at the time when Stenhouse and Cindric spun out. So we go to pit road this time, and once again everyone pits. Hamlin wins the race off pit road over Bell, Gibbs, Larson, Truex. But Larson gets penalized for equipment interference, and there goes the only good Chevrolet in of the race. Oh, at the very least, like the only good Chevrolet in terms of like who had race winning speed, obviously. So anyways, with Larson penalized, Joe Gibbs Racing, they resume their 1-2-3-4 domination with Keselowski in 5th, and Justin Haley, yes, that same Justin Haley with Rick Ware Racing, he's running 6th. Rick Ware Racing. This race was so crazy that Rick Ware Racing, they were running top 10 on speed at one point. And there were battles up front in this run too, but only between obviously the Gibbs teammates, because like I said, JGR, they had this race on lock pretty much from the start of like stage 3, from the second half of the race onwards. It was all about Joe Gibbs Racing. So the battle for the lead, if there was a pass for the lead, it was between the Gibbs cars. So it all started with Ty Gibbs taking the lead early in the run from Hamlin. But after reaching lap traffic and getting into it with the lap car of Todd Gilliland, like, seriously, why did he do that? It looked like, you know, at first it was like Todd Gilliland was trying to hold up the 54, but then when Ty Gibbs lost the lead, he was like, he tried to let his displeasure known with Gilliland, and I was like, bro, just keep advancing. You already passed the lap car. Why do you wanna why do you wanna rough him up a little bit? You wanna intentionally wreck him? Like, that was something that I was just not a big fan of. Just Ty Gibbs just lost his head after he lost the lead, basically. He ended up dropping 3rd behind Hamlin and Truex. So now we go to green flag pit stops, because no caution comes out on this run, and as a matter of fact, no caution came out after that last caution with Stenhouse and Cindric spinning out. No caution came out. And to show you what I mean, this last caution with Stenhouse and Cindric, it came out on lap 100 and 370, excuse me. 130 laps to go in the race. That means that this last green flag run went on for 130 laps. We had 130 laps of green flag action to end the race. So, in the end, we had green flag pit stops, and the drivers just couldn't take it anymore. They were gonna run out of tires long before they ran out of fuel. They had to make one extra pit stop, for tires, obviously. So, Christopher Bell was the first to come down pit road because he had a flat tire. Then Blaney, Larson, and Berry also came down pit road because, they thought Bell with fresh rubber was going to be scary, so they wanted to get a jump on him. Kyle Busch also pits, but he has a slow stop due to an issue with the jackman. Eventually, Hamlin, the leader, pits, as well as Truex, Logano, and Austin Dillon. This hands the lead over to Keselowski, who pits a few laps later, and then Alex Bowman, and then the lead cycles back to Hamlin. With Truex in second and Josh Berry in third due to pitting early, but he's falling back quickly. He may be in third, but he was like 8 seconds back to Hamlin and Truex. That was like a half lap difference. With only 11 cars on the lead lap, and dwindling because this was all about managing the tires, managing lap traffic, and also managing the gap to the leader. That was what these final laps were. It was only between two drivers. This race was decided in the end by two drivers, Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. And lap traffic. Hamlin versus Truex versus lap traffic. So Truex made a strong charge with 15 to go. And for a moment, it looked like he got him beat. But Hamlin held strong on the outside. He put some distance thanks to lap traffic. He got some help from the 23 of Bubba just moving up to hold up Truex. And from that point on, he just managed his tires to perfection. Truex just never came close to Hamlin after that. Hamlin just managed his tires. It was all about tire management for him, and he won out in the end. Just like that, the cream just rose to the top in the end of this race. The 5th different winner of the season. This is also Hamlin's 4th career win at Bristol, and also his first win in the spring race at Bristol, because all of his other 3 wins have come in the Bristol night race. This is his first win at Bristol spring during the day. So, shout out to Hamlin for that. Let's go over the finishing order, because like I said, that race was pretty wild, and that long green flag run with green flag pit stops, obviously, they shook up the running order big time. So, Martin Truex finished second. His first top 5 finish since Michigan in August. Like, thank goodness that streak is over. And then we got Brad Keselowski third, Alex Bowman fourth, and Kyle Larson 5th, and that's it. Those were the only cars who finished on the lead lap. Only 5 cars managed to finish on the lead lap. And I am pretty sure that Keselowski finished like at the very least half a lap behind the leaders. Like, seriously, that battle, that was Hamlin versus Truex at the end. Like, seriously. And if you notice, the top 5, Denny Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski, Kyle Larson, like, all of those drivers, with the exception of, Alex Bowman. No offense to Alex Bowman. Again, no offense to him. But Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski, Larson, all of these guys are veteran drivers with 10 plus years of Cup Series experience. Again, just like I said, tire management, it brings out who the best drivers are in terms of like raw talent. So the fact that a driver like Hamlin won the race with a veteran driver like Truex and another veteran driver like Keselowski right now the top 3, along with another veteran driver like Kyle Larson rounding out the top 5, 4 of those drivers finishing in the top 5, 4 veteran drivers in the top 5 in a track with extreme tire wear. The cream just rose to the top. It was a wild race, yes. It was a war of attrition at times, yes. But the cream, in the end, the cream raced to the top in the end. And that's honestly, I just love races like this personally. We know races with a lot of wild stuff happening, but in the end, like the cream just racing to the top, and the winner just feels earned. It felt earned. Like Hamlin was not the car to beat, but he had like top 5, top 3 speed all race long, and he played the strategy game perfectly. He managed his tires perfectly. This was an earned win. This was 100% an earned win. And I'm saying this, I'm not a big Hamlin fan, but a win is a win, especially if it's earned like this. It was a really fun race. It was a really fun race. Other drivers that finished in the top 10, John Hunter Nemechek in 6th, Chris Buescher in 7th, Chase Elliott in 8th. So at the very least, Chevrolet, they managed to salvage something, because for the second straight week, the Toyotas and even the Fords, they look superior overall. So the fact that Bowman and Larson managed to finish in the top 5 and Chase Elliott managed to round out the top 10, this was the best Chevrolet could manage, basically. And also, again, notice how 3 of those guys are Hendrick Motorsports guys. The fact that, with William Byron out of contention, but the rest of the Hendrick teammates, his other 3 Hendrick teammates finish in the top 8, that's honestly good. That's the best Hendrick could do. The fact that they came out of it with a top 5 after the day turned south with William Byron. With William Byron just getting put multiple laps down to that bend tolling. The fact that Hendrick managed to finish with all of their other 3 guys in the top 8 on a race that they just looked off, Chevrolet as a whole just looked off. That's honestly cause for celebration. That's honestly cause for celebration. They did the best they could. But again, it's just like the Toyotas. Like I said, the Toyotas, there's just no beating them in short tracks. The only way a Toyota can lose on a short track is if they beat themselves. And even if the Toyotas struggle, it's not like Chevrolet is going to have the win handed down to them, because the Fords have also looked pretty good on short tracks too, arguably better than Chevrolet so far this season. So again, it looks like the Chevy camp, they got some work to do when it comes to like their short track program and stuff, just saying. And anyway, speaking of Joe Gibbs Racing, Ty Gibbs 9th, Christopher Bell 10th, running out the top 10. If it wasn't for the flat tires sorry, I cannot speak right now. But if it wasn't for the flat tires that they got that slowed them down coming into pit road, they would have been up there fighting with the 11 and the 9 team and potentially secured a 1, 2, 3, 4 finish for Joe Gibbs Racing, because those guys, not just the 4 JDR drivers, you can take your pick over which of the 4 guys was like the car to beat. Well, obviously, Ty Gibbs was a car to beat. I'm gonna say it now, Ty Gibbs, in my opinion, was the guy to beat. Even if he didn't come out with the most laps led, even if he didn't come out as a driver who led the most laps at the end of the race, but when he was running up front, he looked like the guy to beat. And even with Ty Gibbs just dominating that race, his teammates were running like 2nd, 3rd, and 4th behind him. So it wasn't a question of would Joe Gibbs Racing win the race. It was which of the Gibbs drivers will win the race. And at first we thought it was going to be Ty Gibbs, but even Truex, a guy that has struggled at Bristol for his entire career, basically, he had race winning speed. If it wasn't for some unfortunate circumstances with the lap traffic, he could have won against Hamlin. He could have made the pass on Hamlin and won and made it stick. So yeah, this result. So yes, all 4 Gibbs cars, they finished in the top 10. Like on paper, that's good, but they could have finished so much better. Like 1, 2, 3, 4 type of good. They had like 1, 2, 3, 4 race winning speed. But anyways, enough talking about Joe Gibbs Racing. Let's go with the rest of the field here. Michael McDowell in 11th. Josh Berry in 12th. His tires just fell apart at the end. He couldn't even salvage a top 10 finish. It's still his best showing of the season without a doubt, but it could have been so much more. Chase Briscoe in 13th, Ryan Preece in 14th, and then Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, good old friends, 15th and 16th. They had a moment late in the race with, Chastain bumping on Blaney, just beating and banging there. You already know Blaney's not a big fan of Chastain. You already know Blaney is not a big fan of Chastain, dating back to the championship race last year at Phoenix when they were racing aggressively for the lead. You already know Blaney's not going to be sending him any presents anytime soon. So, Justin Haley 17th. He ran top 10 for most of the race too. And with Kaz Grala, he also finished 19th. He was running top 10 at times as well, but not as often as Justin Haley, but still. Shout out to Rick Ware Racing. Both of their cars, they showed legit top 20 speed, with both of them running in the top 10 at one point. So yeah, top 20 for both Rick Ware Racing cars. This was a career day for them. Daniel Suarez, I'm only mentioning him because he finished right in between the Rick Ware Racing cars. He finished 18th. Joey Logano 22nd. Again, just another terrible sub 20th place finish. He basically struggled the entire race. I know he was like running top 5 at the end of stage 2, and I thought he was gonna stay there, but then stage 3 happened, and as the Gibbs car started, showing speed and started like dominating the race, holding the vice grip on the race, Logano just started getting phased out. Pretty unfortunate. Maybe a flat tire could have played a part in that, but still. Austin Dillon 24th, Kyle Busch 25th. Just an awful race overall for Kyle Busch. I believe this is his 3rd straight finish outside the top 20. After starting out the first 2 races of the season as the points leader, now he has fallen all the way down to last among the drivers that are in the playoffs, like all the way down to 16th in points. We go to Todd Gilliland now in 26. Again, he ran top 10 for parts of the race, like for parts of stage 3, like even top 5, but he just didn't take care of his tires enough. That's why he finished 26th. Carson Olsewar 27th, extremely disappointed with his performance. I expected more out of him, definitely, especially after his revelation, the race that put him on the map, the Bristol night race of last year, driving the 42 for Legacy. I definitely thought he was, this was gonna be like his breakout race, where he was gonna run like at the very least top 20 or top 15. It was just not meant to be. Spire Motorsports, they just had a really rough race, a rough going overall. And no, I'm not just saying that because the Chevrolet struggle, because of Chevy's struggles. No, like seriously, even for Chevrolet standards, they just struggle a lot. Like their best finish for that team was 21st with Corey LaJoie. So yeah, really rough going. Another team that just had a really rough going on this race, 2311. Bubba Wallace in 29th, Tyler Reddick in 20th. They were just off. Reddick's day, it just went south when he decided to stay out on all tires and then got spun out by the leaders. Bubba Wallace, I don't know what happened though. I know he was running top 10 at through some parts of the first half of the race. I don't know what happened in the second half. Again, could have been a flat tire. I know, for all we know, his pit crew could have just given him another slow stop. But whatever the case may be, 2311, they were just off. Austin Cindric 31st. Again, another awful race for him. Another bad race for him. Just like Kyle Busch, he started off the season pretty hot, but now he's just starting to fizzle out in the last 3 races. Stenhouse 33rd. Again, Stenhouse was another one of those guys that I really expected him to do well, especially since he has a dirt racing background and he's used to running on scuffed tires, kind of like Josh Berry. I don't know how much experience he has running on scuffed tires, but usually for dirt racing guys, track conditions like this, they suit dirt racing guys really well, like Larson, Christopher Bell, Berry, Briscoe, Preece. And all of those guys I mentioned, they finished in the top 15. some of that can be attributed to the fact that he got involved in a couple of incidents, but still, he just didn't have. Even then, he just didn't have this. He just didn't have the speed sometimes to keep up with that. Like, I know he ran like in the top 10 almost at some early parts of the race. For all we know, that contact he had with McDowell and then getting spun out by Cindric, maybe it could have been a little too much. So for all we know, maybe I'm just looking too hard into this, but that result, that 33rd place finish for Stenhouse, is just disappointing considering that Bristol is one of his best tracks. Then Noah Gragson 34th. I believe he got hit pretty badly with like flat tires. I know he had to pit like under green at least twice with flat tires issues right before a caution came out too. So he finishes 34th outside. So he finishes 34th, unfortunately. William Byron 35th. Like, his day just ended 10 laps in. He finished running, but his chances of a good finish just ended 10 laps in with hitting the wall and breaking the toe link. And finally, Zane Smith in 35th, the only car who DNF'd. He just could not stay out of trouble. Brake issues, a blown tire, and finally he DNFs in the end due to an engine issue. The only guy who DNF'd, and I'm going to say this right now, Zane Smith has been disappointing. Right now, he is among the full-time Cup drivers right now. He is last place. He is in last place because I believe he has 3 finishes outside of the top 30 in the first 5 races, with 2 of those being DNFs. Yes, he's had some flashes, but unfortunately, he's had a lot of bad results because those flashes happened early in the race, and then he just gets involved in some incident and he gets a bad finish out of it. Just par for the course for that 71 team in the first 5 races, unfortunately. I really hope he turns it around because when the season started, everyone looked at him to be like Trackhouse's next prospect. And now everyone is looking now at Connor Sillage as Trackhouse's main prospect. More on that later when we get to see him in action at COTA. But yeah, overall for Bristol, this race was a banger. Unfortunately, we're never seeing something like this again. NASCAR and Goodyear, they will look into this tire compound. They might change it for the night race later in the year. Again, they said it was the same compound from last year, and they may be right, but even if they're correct, you gotta remember the track conditions were extremely different. Like, this is Bristol in the day, not Bristol in the night. The track, they also had resin applied to it. You gotta remember, before the Bristol weekend, they announced that they had applied resin to it, so the resin may have played a part. Maybe, I don't know the specifics of how the resin affects tire wear with those track conditions. And even then, I find it hard to believe how a tire compound can hold up in the night, but not in the day, especially since the track temperatures, now that I look at them better, those track temperatures on the race at Bristol, they were slightly lower than they were in the night race last year. So again, they got to go back to the drawing board. Like, sure, it wasn't it was absolute madness, and yes, it was extreme tire wear. Would I like to see this like long term for Bristol moving forward? Yes and no. Yes, because tire wear is good, and no, because too much tire wear is not good. I mean, I don't want this to become like Brickyard 2008 Brickyard 400 2.0 down the line. I don't want this to devolve into that. Obviously, despite some people saying that this race was like 2008 Brickyard 400, let me tell you this. Like I said, this race was not 2008 Brickyard 400. At least NASCAR, they let the drivers race. At least the tire wear was manageable. 2008 Brickyard 400, the tire wear was not manageable. Those tires will blow up like every 10 laps to the point that they had to throw competition cautions just to change tires every 10 or so laps. This was not the case at Bristol. They let the guys race and figure out the track as they came on because, yes, the tire wear was extreme, but it was still manageable. Obviously, I would like the tire wear to be toned down by quite a little bit. Let's say to like Darlington, Homestead levels. All Atlanta levels too. Atlanta, before it was reconfigured, also had some nice. They also had some great. Was also a great example of abrasive surface with like tire wear. Bristol is not an abrasive surface; it's concrete. Which is why Goodyear, they bring softer compounds, because they don't need like a harder tire on a softer surface. But still, extreme tire wear is better than no tire wear. Obviously, I would like to see the tire wear like get a bit toned down, but I do not want it to go. Like, this is like a baseline. This race was like a baseline for how Bristol can be moving forward, because that race, even with the tire crisis, it was absolute madness. This race was a banger, just absolute madness between tire crisis. Even with the extra set of tires, you had drivers and teams worried that there may not be enough tires to make it to the end of the race. There were talks about shortening the race due to lack of tires too. Goodyear, in the end, they decided to use leftover tires from the night race last year. So for one, also from the night race last year, and those tires, they were like the exact same compound too as well, because those tires have to get up to standard. But maybe that's where Goodyear got those tires from, leftover tires from the Bristol night race. But yeah, also, like I said, for once, NASCAR having a quick trigger with the caution button was excusable, considering how on edge the teams were with the tire situation. Long caution flag periods were also excusable to allow for teams to save tires. There was a record amount of lead changes in track history. That record was broken. Remember how I said like their track record at Bristol for lead changes was 40? They broke that record around lap 325. And then we had a couple of more lead changes after that. There were very few cars on the lead lap after green flag pit stops. Like, only 5 cars finished on the lead lap. If you want to know how many lead changes the race ended with, it ended with 54 lead changes. The most in a short track in NASCAR history. So overall, how much I would grade this race? Was this race perfect? No, of course not. Like I said, the tire wear was a bit too extreme. But considering the low expectations that people had on Bristol, and considering the low expectations people have with the Gen 7 racing at short tracks, even if the tire wear was extreme, and even if I do think NASCAR is gonna make changes to it, yes, they're gonna make changes to it. This makes it a once in a lifetime race where drivers just had to figure out the track as they went, a blend of old school meets new school Bristol. I don't care that the tire wear was extreme. I'm giving this race an A+. I'm giving this race an A+, because this was by far the best short track race in the Gen 7 era. And it's pretty crazy and ironic, because they did not use the short track package for this race. They used the intermediate package instead because of Bristol's high banks. It was old school Bristol short track racing turned up to 11. This race was what we thought the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro would be like last year. This was what we expected out of North Wilkesboro. This was what we expected out of North Wilkesboro last year before it got repaved. Holy shit! That race was fun. Do I think it's gonna happen again? No. Do I want to see it happen again? Not really. I mean, the tire wear is nice. Like I said, extreme tire wear is better than no tire wear at all. But they need to tone it down. Like, that was a bit too extreme. Not 2008 Brickyard 400 levels, but still, a little bit too extreme. When I think about races with a perfect mix of tire wear and comers and goers, I think of, again, Darlington, Homestead, Atlanta before it was reconfigured. It was a very abrasive surface. Those 3 racetracks are perfect for me. They're just perfect. Also, Auto Club Speedway before it was torn down. RIP Auto Club Speedway. But yeah, those races, they're perfect max. They're a perfect mix of comers and goers, and also like tire wear without being too extreme, and also great racing, without too extreme tire wear. So Still though, racing was fun. Race was a banger. Driver of the day. There were a couple of candidates for driver of the day. The Requa Racing drivers, Justin Haley, Kaz Grala, they're definitely up for consideration. If Justin Haley finished in the top 10, that would have been like a shoo-in. He would have been a shoo-in for driver of the day, though. Unfortunately, the fact that he didn't just opens the door up for a couple of other candidates. Todd Gillen was up there. Unfortunately, he just didn't take care of his tires a lot. Josh Berry again, but unfortunately he didn't finish in the top 10. But the fact that he showed up on a Stewart-Haas racing car, that was just amazing. Ty Gibbs had the car to beat. If he just held on and to the win, or at the very least a top 5 finish, I do believe he would have been driver of the day for me. None of those guys I mentioned are driver of the day. Instead, I'm giving the driver of the day to a guy that stayed in the top 10 all race long, and I feel that he doesn't get talked about enough for his performance. John Hunter Nemechek. Don't look now, but John Hunter Nemechek had a great points day. He finished top 10 in both stages. He ran top 10 from the get-go. And he stayed even with all of the madness of tires and stuff like stuff like that at the end of the race. Yes, he finished a lap down, but he still finished top 10. He was like the first guy a lap down. He finished as the first car a lap down. And considering the fact that there were only 5 cars who finished in the lead lap, he finished 6th, which was amazing. You know, a lot of people were looking at Eric Jones as the guy that will carry the torch for Legacy Motor Club. Again, don't look now, but John Hunter Nemechek right now is the one that has Legacy in the playoffs right now. He is above the cut line in the playoffs for Legacy Motor Club. Jones is on the bubble, but he's like below the cut line. You would have called me crazy if I told you that through 5 races, John Hunter Nemechek would have a better start to the season than Eric Jones, but yet here we are. And I feel like John Hunter is one of those drivers that doesn't get talked about enough. I feel like he gets a lot of disrespect, and he gets more hate than what he deserves, simply because most of that can be attributed to the fact that he drives a Toyota, and that's hate, and that hate is unfair, honestly. But yeah. That race was a freaking banger. I need some water. I need some water after talking about this race. I'm just, I guess I'm just leaving it here. It's 12. What time is it? It's 12:40 p.m. My gosh, I need some water. Okay, so the Coda race, the truck race should be starting in about an hour or so. Okay. Yeah, let's leave this out. Let's just enjoy the truck race at Coda. But yeah, just thinking back about Bristol just fills me up with hype. I know not every short track race is gonna be like this, but that Bristol race was special, man.